Donald Trump participated in a virtual probation interview Monday. Last month, Trump became the first former or sitting U.S. president to ever be convicted in a criminal trial. The unanimous jury found him guilty on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records related to hush money payments to adult film actor Stormy Daniels to silence her about an alleged sexual encounter with Trump before the 2016 election. Monday marked another first, a former president interviewing with a probation officer. Trump joined the call from Mar-a-Lago with his attorney so they could review his crimes and personal record to determine what they want to request for sentencing. That's scheduled for July 11th, 4 days before the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, where Trump is expected to accept his party's presidential nomination. With less than 150 days until the election, a new CBS poll shows President Biden and Donald Trump essentially tied in the race for the White House. Both nationally and in battleground states, the two major candidates are virtually even in support. As has been the case for most of the race, the economy, state of democracy, and immigration are major factors in the campaign. What is new is that Trump is now a convicted felon, but the polls shows that hasn't changed voter opinion much. So to help us understand that, CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett joins me now. So, a major thing has happened, and yet the polls pretty much feel like they are where they were, or do you see it that way, and what do you make of it?
I don't see it that way, John. I think it's going to take this country a fair amount of time to fully process all of the aspects of a guilty verdict for a former president seeking re-election to the highest office in the land. And just that reader you did a moment ago about a probation hearing and all the manifestations of a former president going on a Zoom call for a probation hearing about preparations for sentencing and what may flow from that. There's now a conversation among public defenders in New York seeking the exact same special accommodations given to the former president for low-income clients. That seems to be a reasonable request, but they're not always given that. They don't get to have an attorney present, or they can't do it via virtual connections. Well, as Americans think about every single stage of this, I believe it is worth imagining that their impressions and how it affects their political choice come November may change over time. It may evolve. And I know pollsters are going to try to find this answer as best they can, but I'm not sure it's going to emerge for a while. And I think this country, at least those who are still up for grabs in terms of their partisan alignment not being so nailed down, Biden or Trump, they're going to evolve with this, and they're going to comprehend it on their own timetable and on their own terms for quite some time.
Another thing that was in the numbers was a shift in reasoning behind why there is support for President Biden. The amount of likely Biden voters who say they will vote for him to oppose Donald Trump has gone up in the past few months. What does that mean? Again, with all the caveats one should add with polling. Nevertheless, what do you think that means for the Biden campaign and how they might reach out to voters?
One of the truisms, John, of this campaign, from my perspective, is there is a symbiotic relationship between Biden and Trump. They both need each other. Trump's rhetoric against Biden far, far more lacerating and aggressive than it was even against Hillary Clinton. Why? Because Biden beat Trump, and he can't stand that. So he's deeply aggressive and deeply aggrieved against Joe Biden, the person, and everything he represents. Similarly, for President Biden, his nomination is reassured and his approach to that nomination guaranteed. No challengers in the Democratic Party, even those possibly well-positioned, even thought of doing it because they thought that Joe Biden, as President of the United States, was the best Democrat to defeat President Trump because he did it previously. And for the Biden campaign, they know they have softness on an issue set of immigration, inflation, maybe some others. What they don't have any softness of, and one thing that rallies their base and lightly attached Democrats and even some independents, is bringing up what former President Trump represents, both now and in his past presidency. And that's something they were relying on a couple of months ago to bring this race closer. They spent a lot of money in that direction. The race is now closer. So you can see that they believe that strategy is vindicated, which means it will be repeated again and again.
So then as a final question, Major, if I can pick up on what you said and fix me if I've got it wrong, but if you're the Biden campaign, you would rather talk about Donald Trump's problems than you would like to talk about immigration, an issue on which Joe Biden has trouble with voters. On the other hand, President Biden has this new executive order about migration How do you think that plays out? And are we seeing anything that would suggest it's playing out one way or the other subsequent to when he's announced this order?
The Biden campaign has made it pretty clear that the sequence is former President Trump is a threat on several different levels. You should be nervous about voting for him. Oh, and by the way, we have these other policies you should be interested with. And immigration is a place where the Biden campaign now says it is responsive to voter concerns. Not as responsive as Trumpist Republicans want him to be. That will never be the case. But responsive enough to, A, have something to say and have Democrats to say when they're questioned about immigration, as inevitably they are in Washington and back home, and in preparation for this debate on June 27th as it is currently scheduled. If that debate goes on, and there are lots of people who wonder whether it will or whether it won't, but if it goes on, President Biden now has something to say in terms of executive action on immigration. Will it satisfy Trump? Will it end all of the criticism? No, but it's responsive. And for the Biden campaign, politically on immigration, they had to do that step because they knew, watching former President Trump after his conviction, what was the first thing he talked about? Not that. First thing he talked about was immigration. They know that's going to be former President Trump's lead card against them.
Major Garrett in Washington. Excellent as always. Thanks so much, Major.